Hello, my name is Mr. Rodriguez from Ideas South Flores, and today's video will be covering violin and more importantly, beginner mariachi violin. So, first thing is first, we want to get our posture set up and how our position is going to be playing. Now, to play violin, you need the left hand, you need your shoulder, your neck, and then your right hand, okay, for the bow. First things first is, let's just put down the bow if you have it, and go first for the violin, where we have the chin rest, and then you should have on the back a shoulder rest that connects. If you don't, that's okay. We could get you one. From there, let's set it up. The way you're supposed to play violin and have it set up is you're supposed to, it is called a chin rest, but you're gonna put more your jaw and slightly a bit of your chin on it. So don't straight up put your chin on it, because it's gonna be off center and feel very ugly. So angle it a little bit to where your jaw is more laying on the chin rest, and it fits it nice and perfectly. Now, of course, if you have a shoulder rest, this will be a lot easier to hold it. But if you can hold it just like this without putting any fingers on it and just doing it all with your neck and shoulder, that's a good position. Now from there, let's add the left hand and be able to place it to hold it. Okay? Now with the left hand, you're going to make a C, and with that C, grip the violin. Okay. Now with the thumb, you're not going to put it on top of the strings, right? Because all the fingers are going to do all that. You're going to let the thumb hang off to the side or even underneath the violin. So either off to the side or underneath. So this will look like this, or like this. Whichever you prefer or feels better. I personally do this off to the side, just so I can be able to get things much faster, or if I really have to go for a high note, all of my thumb has to just stay there, and I get to slide. Okay, so it's a lot easier. Now that you got the left hand position and your whole shoulder and neck and all that centered out, now let's place down our fingers where they're supposed to be to start labeling the notes. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is start off with the basic string names, right? So the basic strings of a violin, the first one, the thickest, the lowest, is G. Then the second is this D string. Then the third is the A string. And then last, the highest, is the E string. Okay. Now that we have 4 of those notes already labeled, we already have the positions of making sure we're in the right position, holding it nice and confidently. Now, let's try to play a scale. Because scales, it's all, as long as you're following the finger path, you will be perfectly fine and play a scale. So now, let's do this and figure it out. The most basic way and fastest way for you to pick up a violin. The fastest way is by always maintaining this fingerings for all these specific strings. So the fingerings for all these 4 strings is just leave a bit of space from the scroll and the first finger, and that is where you will place down your first finger. Then from there, leave more space, just like you did right here, between the first and second finger, and that is where your second finger will come in. Then from there, you will now place down your third finger. Now the third finger, don't get it tricked up, because just because you put space between the first one and then space between the first and second one, doesn't mean you're going to put space between first, second, and third, so it's not going to look like this. That would, of course, make the violin easier. What makes it harder is it does stay to this, so where there's space, space, and then right here, they're both close together. Boom, 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 boom. Right? So that already is the G scale, and that we're starting on. Now, if we want to go higher and finish the G scale, so these notes were just G, A, B, C. In case you're wondering, well, why is the third one C? just go up in the alphabet. Since technically we're already starting on the last letter of the musical alphabet, which is G, it repeats back to A. So G is open string, the first one. Now, if you pluck this string once again, now with the first finger being pressed down in the correct spot, this will now play the second note in the G scale, which is now the A. So you have G1, 2, A. Okay. Now let's place down your second finger to add the third note, which is now B. So now you have G, A, B. Now let's do the last finger, which is now C. Now, what we would do is technically, if you're more intermediate or advanced, now you can technically place down your pinky, and from right here, this is where you add more space. So now, technically, if you add all 4 of your fingers down, you'd have space between the first and the scroll, then space between the first and second finger position, no space at all between the second and third, but space once again between the third and fourth. So this is how it would sound. And now it reaches from Do to Sol. Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol. Okay. Now, this is the reason why we sometimes don't even use the fourth finger. Because the fourth finger, instead of placing that one down, you can string cross to the next string and keep continuing up the scale. So now, instead of doing the fourth finger, let me show you just going up the third finger and then going into the next string. So you have G, A, B, C, then the next string, D. There you go. And those are the 5 notes as well, without me having to press down that fourth finger to add the fifth note. Now let's keep going higher with the same exact fingerings, and we will finish the G scale. So once again, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. And just with those finger positions, both on the G string and the D string in the same position, you played the D scale. Okay? And the reason why you might be wondering, well, what would it be if I do a D scale? Now let's do the D scale. Now just keep the same position, but now instead of starting on G, we start on D, because I said D scale. So now start on D and walk up once again. Now the alphabet's going to kind of change, right? Because we're no longer starting on G and returning back to A. Now we're starting on D, the fourth letter of the alphabet. Okay? So now let's just start on D and walk up. D, E, F, G, A, open A string, B, C sharp, D. Okay? In another video, we will start going over, of course, reading music and understanding all the things about, well, why does this one have sharps, this one has flats? But so far, I want you to make sure that you get down the fingerings first. Because if you could play the fingerings down and get them in the right position, you can play all the scales on the violin. The G, D, A, and even the first 5 notes of the E string scale. So G scale, D scale, then A scale, and then finally the E scale. Technically, there's no more other string that you can go to, so we're only going to do the first 5 notes. Okay, so if you could go up to that much with your pinky on the E string, that's a good place for you to start, because technically you're only going to be using the pinky mainly on the E string. And that is all I have today for the violin. Now, in the next video, we're going to talk about bowings and stuff like that. This video was all about fingerings and understanding all of the notes in the violin. Thank you.